Hi everybody, so yes, I'm Szabolcs Barakonyi, photographer, photo editor, and sometimes I work as a curator. I will tell you the story of this book, which is on the table. You will get it soon, but sometimes I will ask it back to show something more. So, as an artist, I look at this project like any other of my photographic works, in my personal photographic works, so my artist practice. So where does the story begin? If I start from far away, there was snow in the winter of 2012 and 13, and Junior Tamás Konok, famous Hungarian painter, he died 3 years ago in November, but he went to visit his house because he wanted to show us the photos of his father, and the father, Tamás Konok, was one of the first to buy his Tven novelty color camera. That time Leica called new camera as a color camera because I think because of the chromatic aberration, was ready to use for the color films. And he bought it in 1938, but he did not expect to take pictures with the Leica on the Eastern Front in 1942. An amateur photographer, because of the poor family background, he joined the army and later served as a commander of war reporter, war correspondent company in the Hungarian army. Instead of horror and honors of the war, his attention was focused on military life, the Russian landscape and people, and photography itself, of course. The whole thing was fantastic what we seen there, and there was no question of writing about the article, and we wanted to publish the images as soon as we could. And this is the article. But Tamás Konok's story and his work is actually worse in another presentation. So in 2013, at the OSHA Budapest, this stuff later had an exhibition, and that time OSHA is a Blinken Open Society Archives, is an archival repository and laboratory that aims to explore new ways of assessing, contextualizing, presenting, and making use of archival documents, both in a professional and consciously activist way. So at the time of one of the OSHA staff was Miklós Tamási, who is the heart of the Fortepan archive. He established, he funded, and that time he had this project called Fortepan. Tamási and Ákos Szepesi, they were high school friends and classmates, started to collect photographs from the rubbish, exactly from the streets. You know, this every year you have to throw away your old stuff on the streets, and at that time they were just spread out and started to collect negatives and also papers and rolls and stuff like that. So in 2009, Tamási began scanning his treasures, and after scanning approximately 10,000 photos, he selected 5,000 and uploaded to the new website, and they call it Fortepan. Fortepan was a global brand of, I'm sure most of you know, brand of negative film produced in Hungary at the Forte factory in Vác from 1947 to 2001. Forte also manufactured photographic development paper. The website was launched in 2010 and initially contained photographs found randomly on the streets of Budapest. The archive has expanded since then through donations for families, amateurs and professional photographers along with public collection. The images on the website are selected by editors and curated by Miklós Tamási. So I was working a pre-selected archive. Tamási, the curator-in-chief, that time already tried to collaborate with newspaper in order to have regular, well-edited publication from or for the Fortepan archive. Several attempts were made with the independent newspaper 444, but the newspaper did not have very large editorial staff. They just started the paper, and so there was no one responsible for manage the Fortepan publications. But Tamási has seen these articles. We made it in index. And the quality of the article about Tamás Konok caught Tamás's attention, and both textual and picture editing. And he saw that Index had a photo column, leaded and established by me. We first met in the second half of 2013, when the archive had already reached a few 10,000, maybe 25, 30, something like that. The Index photo column was founded in 2012 with the vision to have regular features on documentary and related fine art photography. I was also familiar with the Fortepan collection and regretted that we were not the first to know about the new treasures. But finally, the time had come, and Miklós Tamási and I agreed that there would be a permanent presence of Fortepan on the Index site. From 2015, Fortepan had its own sub-site on the Index, and every weekend we produced the feature picture stories on different themes, subjects, thematics. And I was the photo editor of the articles. Over the years, I passed a lot of pictures. I remember one of the first one very clearly. És Tivadar Lissák, a very good amateur photographer, photographed the years between 1934 and 48, and his family carefully preserved the 8,000 negatives. Although he wasn't a professional photographer, as an engineer he took his hobby quite seriously and precisely, and his pictures show a mixture of professional and amateur photography. He is on the right, from the two strange guys. Usually Miklós Tamási prepared the material carefully for me. I had to edit it pictures always, so I had things to do with the stuff, but I didn't have to spend days on it. It is likely the archive started to grow significantly at the end of the 2014, and he was very busy with it, and he left the work of the selection of more than 2,000 digitalized images entirely. He gave it entirely to me, which took me 3 days. I was sorting through them, and I had a strange feeling. Of course, I didn't know the author personally, but his images revealed certain things about his personality. There are more authors on the Fortepan whose images are not necessarily the best, but somehow I like their personalities. So I wondered how much responsibility I had to guess and reconstruct the way how he would probably have presented his images to the public. It also came into my mind Vivian Mayer's story, but also what I would be like if I got the negatives of some great photographer like Bresson or Kertész. Would I find new images, new pics in their oeuvre? It's always all about where the boundaries, what my knowledge, what I could see in Lissák's images many years later. What is my responsibility, and what does the knowledge of the past 80 years in photography mean? And what does responsibility mean at the moment when the author no longer has a word in the selection of his images? It was a very good job. I think I made a good compromise to keep the article informative, good for the audience. It's a news portal, and I kept the historical content and connections. And as they came, I forgot these dilemmas very soon. But one evening, 4 years later, I had the feeling maybe I had discovered the possible key, not the key, but the possible key to the Fortepan collection. In the newspaper, where Fortepan images were published weekly in the form of thematic articles. I was looking through a lot of images and I thought I should try to get rid of the thematics and just focus on the images itself. In the summer of 2018, I realized that the solution was a book. I treated the archive images as if they were one big family album or a work of a man who was Hungarian and lived through the 20th century, like a spirit. And this person, of course, it means it's me. But so it was a powerful experiment. I could even sleep. I decided to deal with the Fortepan as nobody before. I've locked myself in with the photos and look at them from the start to finish. The time was 130,000 images on the website. So and I realized, because when I prepared my presentation today, the phrase a magical number. There is a song of it, but the first collection took me for 3 days, and the whole archive took me 3 months, and finally the book contains 333 images. And, it's not important information, but I just realized today. So I logged myself with the images, and this number. It's almost unmanageable. So there is no way, it's impossible to find a way among them anymore. And I believe the Fortepan is a collective memory imprint of the 20th century. When I began taking photographs, I received the good advice of concentrating the archetypal image, which is a different term, I know, but I thought it's about purely an object of admiration. Perhaps this idea has remained with me because ever since I wanted to draw the viewer closer to this admiration, this state of emotion. So for me, the most important aim of the arts to enable us to look at something with a fresh eye. And then also don't think neither the pictures have to be understood all the time. Yeah, and the process also was 3 years long, so the other 3. And finally, I looked through 150,000 images. So I've seen each of them. Now the archive is almost 200,000, but I didn't follow that anymore because maybe I should make a new book, but not yet. So, what follows are some ideas I had during the time when I logged myself in, which was the most intensive period of selecting from the 130,000 photos. I sent these emails to the designer and the producer in order to fuel their patience and passion. There was moments of controlling whether everything I discovered by looking at Fortepan's photos over the years was okay. Of course, the answer to the question I've raised are not in my written words, but in the selected 333 photographs. I try to start the presentation. Best of. This best of label is not mine best of, it's Tamási Miklós's best of. And maybe this quantity is okay for the internet connection. 21st of October 2018, Sunday. Pros, professionals, may be better at indicating what to reject. Artistic intention often spoils everything because it does not compulsively leave untouched what it sees. But it may not be a characteristic feature of professionals in the traditional sense because, for example, many photo reporters discover exciting things. Maybe everything is possible, it's it is only because they do not take photos for themselves, but also for us. An outstanding artist seems not trust the camera to be a magic tool by its very nature. And while creating the image, it's appropriate to seek opportunities instead of mastering the capacities of the tool. To learn and really use it probably means this. Naturally, all-encompassing knowledge itself is the unavoidable path. We cannot merely rely on chance, although it happens. Indeed, the more frequently we practice in the process, the more it occurs. 28th of October. The other day I wrote about prose, but now it came to my mind that the publication of press and photo reports represent an emotional turning point in the photography. Instead of capturing special moments, the camera is used for looking at things face to face. Discovery, investigation, and exploration will keep unpleasant matters on the agenda. Meanwhile, of course, the good reports will show what people continue to do in order to help and advance things. So reporters will indeed be the pros of the 20th century from our book's point of view. And as I've written, intention spoils many things. A reporter still has too many ideological, trendy, and similar intentions. That results in them more readily turning to patterns and templates in order to take a photo, which cannot often be avoided since they take the most photographs. But unfortunately, empties the pictures similarly as if they created the new symbols without thinking. They don't believe it is enough for them to be present. That will anyway provide the framework and the opportunity. What we are seeking in more ancient, pure thing, it is experience and admiration by taking delight, which is an intimate and personal involvement. Well, the question is what to do with the prose. Let us not have talked too much. Of course, no one should be silenced, but should also be seen with professionals is what remains from the nature of the camera. What remains from the images through which they involuntarily recognize the deeper meaning of imagery, when they step back and present themselves with a real attention. I always say two things to those who want to be reporters and I met in the school or came as a trainers: curiosity and attention. To maintain the above two in relation to be photos will be important for editing this volume. We don't want to tell anyone what to think. We will not report on anything. Yet we will try to put the most essential moments of photography in focus. We will go through the 20th century spontaneously. And time does not matter. We can jump at random. We cannot get rid of it completely anyway. 4th of November. I have recently been thinking a lot about diversity and editing. It was not a remarkable week, and I had much else on my mind. Still making progress from home, it's very different. Then I was in Debrecen, and the first 3 months I was in the countryside busy with my another photographic project, and it's about I had to wait a lot, and in the meantime I was always on my computer and just selecting the images. Now I can appreciate the days there more. Consequently, I definitely must stay put with the pictures. It is good when this is the main activity of the day. The pictures pour over me and I let them go through me. The book could be something like that. The connection between the photos would not matter. It could remain entirely emotional with free associations because every thematic matter is involved in that. And we talk about not having really anything thematic. That we will be different with us, and that's what we will be courageous about. I continue to think it right. It should be like a good Insta or a good feed. It is anyway unconditionally reflexive for anyone, no problem with the understanding it. Rolling pictures in which memory, the experience remembering come back. The collective photographic memory of the 20th century Hungary. Ideas which turn up, then pass by and disappear by their own nature. 18th of November. I'm very excited because I have started the second sorting of the photos. My first experiments is still basically that they make me feel good. The question is to what degree we should be communist. Apart from the fact that we were, and of course that must be shown. To what degree to be exotic? Have a look how strange they are. Oh well, they are Hungarians. These Hungarians are interesting. What do they eat? But you immediately realize that is high straps, similar to creating teams. It can be communicated well to the outside, but it's exactly the reason why we have to watch out for how much it undermines honestly of rather commitment to being without an apparent aspect of selection. I would like to continue wanting the book not to be understood, to say that's it, that is how it was, that's what we had. It could have been like that in Hungary. That is this, that's that, and that. I would like to be similar to when someone who is looking at would be humming to themselves. They would loudly hum something that's not usually about a recognizable tune or rhythm or song, but it's when you modify and bend a tune, sort of droning, if I understand the meaning of humming correctly. So it will be good to have a great freedom, but at the same time it's appropriate for it to be somewhat limited. Not to stop, but only just to conserve the single moment from it. Otherwise, we are setting off on an experiment which, if I are consistent, is impossible to finish. A flow cannot necessarily be firmly fixed, but can perhaps be represented. So, turn on the book. It's not very easy to handle this book because the book is designed by Zalán Péter. He's a very he's a self-taught designer, and he's a megalomaniac. That's why I chose him. And he calls it a double-spined book. All second pages has a floating plate. So it's the concept behind it. You can read it, the picture editing again and again and again. In a calculation, there is thousands of variations of the juxtaposing in a new way. So, handle with care.
So, you know very well.
yeah. But it's maybe the Fortepan side has okay. At first, I was really nervous about the structure of the book. It seemed too complicated and too fancy and too much. But we were looking for a solution. The problem, the format, usually the format of the book determines the placement of the images. And we tried to democratize the placement of the images. The standing and lying, a portrait or a landscape picture should have the same emphasis if you check the book. And of course, the Fortepan archive is carefully selected with a lot of historical values, and an editor is a state of power. Because I hide things and I show things, and I decide what I would like to show and what is not visible anymore. But everyday image editing is often predictable. The classic image editing, there are rules for editing pictures, just like for eating. So you should not mix up the order. In the everyday image editing has no surprises. And but the surprises are important because they throw the viewer, push out the viewer from the balance, and it gives the viewer the opportunity to look at something fresh. So at first I wanted a completely text-free book. We have a lot of prejudice about pictures, especially old pictures. We have expectations. We want to know about lot about what's in the picture. This often bothers me because we are not looking at the picture. We are looking for the historical, social information it contains. I wanted us to look at the selected images in the same way we look at the highest or greatest artworks in museums. And this photograph, it's coming from the trash can. Canonization means to ascribe the highest value to what you see. I adopt this elaborate format. I allowed this elaborate format because it's a good wrapping, because it at the first glance it's overwhelming and it looks expensive and fancy design, and it changed the way we look at images in this book, I think. While sorting through the pictures, there was hardly a photo that didn't have some visible damage. Scratches, stamp of mold. Obviously, a photograph is most exciting. It's in original quality, in its original state, but it is impossible to love a photograph even with these damages, because it's not only that we have not seen it intact before, but kind of aesthetic surplus can be added to the photograph. It is really exciting when more special pieces turn up among the damaged photos, where this aesthetic addition is given an extra twist as our brains playfully associate damage with the content. So we had we find few images, but it was on purpose, very similar to great photographs which is existing in the history of photography. For example, it remains for the Nibs photographs from his window. But this one is the first, it's from the first year from the 20th century, and it's photographed from an upstairs window of the old town of Osijek. It's in Serbia. At the Trade and Administration School in the main square. It's a very similar balance regarding the tones and the shapes and the rhythms. Very, very favorite photographs of Tamási Miklós, and that's why we put these photos in the book in the interview with him. At no other point when the photographs are illustrated by text. So I was sure from the beginning what I wanted for the opening image of the book, but it turned out it's not possible because of the format and the structure of the book doesn't allow to put 2 pages landscape pictures on the front without wrapping, without breaking the page, and we didn't want it to broke with the turning bandage the first most important images. And it's for me it's also a paraphrase of Sugimoto's photography. So, and this is the opening picture for me. I'll tell you why. Here is the picture, my original opening picture of 3 young men in shorts, half naked, drinking water from a river, just like wild animals. For me, like deers. Maybe because the wild animals are not very common in Hungary, the deer is the widest. If we are imagined for a moment that we don't know anything about mankind, humanity, because we are aliens, and we are reading the National Geographic magazine of an alien planet as an alien creature, which is the history of humanity on the cover, the history of the Earth on the cover, then the cover photo should be this picture for me. This wondering about who we really are then lasts through the whole book. It is very strangeness and desire to know ourselves. That is, in a way, one of the approaches of Fortepan Masters. The situation with the closing picture, closing image, was very similar to the opening image. There was two of them because the structure of the book and the format of the pictures. Of course, I love all of the pictures in the book, but I love this one especially because every detail is perfect. A good table shot from slightly above, sitting in a semicircle, with their table around a tree, the road running through the tree behind them, and I smile when I look at it. This could also be an important image for the fictional National Geographic article. It's about togetherness. It's about the fact it's actually good to do together the things, to get through it all together here in the earth. In the end, this could not be the last picture of the book. I had to put another one behind it. This photo is also a fair phrase for me. Can you guess it? The famous photographer? Who is the famous photographer who came into your mind? For me, André Kertész. Maybe because Kertész is Hungarian. So it's not totally the same way, but somehow the meaning and the structure and the age and the distance from here and now. The whole book is full of images that remind us to great photographers, the great photographs. This neither accidental nor forced. It happened this way because we did not want to, and we couldn't avoid it. And in the meantime, this picture was not the last picture in the book because the book was constantly evolving as it was being made. So you can find the picture in the between the photo credits end of the book. So we put a picture into the photo credits too. When the editing images, we didn't stick rigidly to the number of 333 images. First, my idea was 500 in the brackets, as I originally wanted. There was a moment in the work when we stopped. At the point, there were 331 images in the book, but one of my great favorites, which is otherwise had the potential to be the last image, fell out, and it's about time. So we put it back after the closing picture, but at that point we had already moved on to the picture catalog, and for me having a picture in the picture catalog is totally unusual, but there was no ways to tap. We went bananas with the designer, and sometimes I say in an ideal situation, an ideal verb for the images, the caption of an image can only be another image, another text. With that power, image can slip in between the data in the image directory. The fact that images do not end at the closing images does not actually close the book, so the work remains open. For the people, the first thing to look for on the Fortepan is their past, where they were born, where they lived, the city, the street, the house, where they have a connection. What is being created in the Fortepan Masters is kind of conceptual art, but perhaps the essential difference is that book is a life-affirming, inclusive. If you communicate only with images, there is a truthfulness to that. That if you don't put a narrative next to the image, you don't explain it away because the attention stays on the image and the intellect operates in an emotional state, which is very old function, I believe, in relation to vision and really occurs in relation to photograph because today expectations, today photo consuming. The book is created in a part to draw to eye to the picture and not look at the picture based on the text written for them. So as I said, I wanted to create a picture, a photo book without text, but In the last year, for the Christmas promotion, I had to write about single images, so it's a strange feeling, but I will share you these stories. The moment of image selection, the moment when I decide that an image will be included in the book, is an emotional matter. Emotional, but not intellectual. I believe that images have a word that is pure and completely independent of words. Then we don't describe them in words, although our intellect kicks in just as it does when we read. The moment when I survived, I've chosen a picture in somewhere very simple. If I were to put in sentimentally, and it's really the simplest way, it's as clear a feeling as you when realize you have fallen in love. This kind of certainties have definite moments. And I think the people on these pictures, they are in love. But why I think? In the Fortepan collections, older Tamás Konok's picture, the humanist, and not only from the Eastern Front, with whom I started the presentation today, the human officer considered photography a hobby and a personal interest, while he was associated with photographer in the National Association of Hungarian United Amateurs, such as Jenő Dulovics, Rudolf Balog, József Pécsi. What we see here is a very important image in the book, not only because it's an amazingly good photograph, but also because one of the characters is his son, Tamás Konok, the painter. He is a very important part of the Hungarian contemporary art history. So with this kind of extra knowledge, the information can be discovered and explored, but only after the first moment of wonder, so as not to spoil the real sensory experience. Fortepan Masters is not a historical book, but it was in the historical section in R. It's okay. We wanted to avoid the viewer becoming attached to the specific year and what they know about the period, but the book is full of historical threads. There are images side by side connected, not only the image editing, but also much deeper layers. Three of the books, 479 and 418 and 481 pages, are about 1956, the revolution. Although the middle photo is from 1952, but by the other two were most certainly taken in the day after or on 23rd of October. You would think that the first photo, this one, is a picture of a revolution, perhaps because you don't see many Volkswagen Beetles in the 50s in Hungary and the photos from the 56 revolution. At the first we thought the photo might have been taken in Austria because of the red and green flag. In the black and white photos show a little difference in the tones. So it could be an Austrian flag. The crowd in the background of the picture is blurred because the photographer was following the movement of the car with his camera. One of the figures can be clearly made out because the light of the color of her coat, a woman with a scarf over her head and her hands in her pockets. A child in a hoodie leans against the window of the car, but the face of the driver doesn't see. Yeah, it's blurry. There is something hanging in the rear view mirror, yes. Perhaps a little puppet or mascot. Under the windshield of the car, on the near side, there are maybe a piece of paper which a coat of arms, perhaps some kind of distinguished sign of the revolutionary involvement or role. In the other picture, from 56, a man in a gas mask comes up from underground on Kossuth Square with a gun in his hand. From the photo that we know, the location and that the scene took place precisely at the metro construction site, and the crowd is standing around him, but we can only see the feet of the other characters, other protagonists, or more precisely the toes of the shoes pointing towards the man. At the top of the photo, a wire or a pipe runs through like a drawn heart. The man gaze is not visible under the gas mask, and we can only guess that may have been searching the communists under the ground. The third picture was taken 4 years before the revolution in the summer. At that time, no one could have guessed what would happen in a few years, and that much worse period would begin afterwards. We were looking for a photo to accompany the pictures of the revolution, a photo in which life looks beautiful, but which was taken in a world completely destroyed of freedom in the years before '56. A happy-looking summer moment from that miserable decade can show the freedom that people were fighting for. The photograph is a little lifeless, many scratches running across the surface. A photo has been scanned and now more visible. The scratches are more visible than the image itself. A nice detail for me on that. The woman has her watch on her dress. It's so sweet. So the meaning of these three images can be summarized. The first, the celebration. Second is a carefree happiness, and with a weapon, what is capable of taking life. This photo is taken by a well-known Hungarian photographer, Imre Kinski, who took several photos of his children's hands. Because there are real professional photographers in the Fortepan Masters. It would be a misunderstanding to think that Fortepan and the Fortepan Masters is made up exclusively for amateur family photographs. So save my photos and I will start my life. Restart my life, says the artist, who is a major figure among the greatest Hungarian photographers. The picture accidentally upside down in the book. Kinski photographed his kids like this. The thing is, Attila Pöce, the owner of the Vintage Gallery, the first Hungarian gallery at the Paris Photo, asked us first if we did it on purpose, to put the picture in the book upside down, and we told him no, we probably weren't paying attention because we liked the picture as we seen at the first time. And we were almost done with the editing when we were informed about the mistake. We tried to flip it back. It's the original position, but it didn't work for our eyes anymore. We were so used to it in like this way. So in the end, it stayed in the way. It is reversed, and it is the same reverse on the Fortepan's side. The photo shows the hands Gábor Kinski, but there was another very important hand in the family, Judith Kinski's hand, which saved Imre Kinski's photographic negatives in a small suitcase through the war and the ghetto, without which we would not see much of the Kinski legacy today. Judith, she's still living, donated the negatives to the Budapest collection of Ervin Szabó Library in 1985. So thank you, Judith. And this is the catalog of vintage gallery at Paris Photo these days. Tomorrow is the opening night with Imre Kinski photographs.